everyone, and welcome back to the ACCN podcast. I'm your host, Shivani. Unfortunately, my co host, Cassandra, will be missing today, but we still have a very exciting guest joining us. So today I'm joined by Fardosa Mustafa, who is a climate champion, environmental lawyer, and now founder and CEO of a climate company called Registry. And so for today's conversation, I thought it'd be really great to hear her story, hear her journey, and how she ventured into this so-called climate space. So Fardosa, over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Shivani. It's nice to hang out again. It's been a while. And thank you so much for having me here. So yeah, like you said, my name is Fardosa Mustafa. By profession, I am an environmental lawyer and now venturing into the entrepreneur space. I am also a climate action activist. Maybe I'll just explain a little bit more what that is because it feels a bit vague lately. So basically what that means is a lot of my actions are around raising awareness on climate change, what causes climate change, how we can take individual action, how we can take also corporate action, government action, like basically just trying to touch all the different stakeholders and, hold us and everyone else accountable. So that's basically what I do.
Cool. And so how did you, I guess, start off to be a climate activist? And I also know as a climate activist, you run a program called Sufficient Saturdays. So yeah, I'm curious to hear how you got into the space, what your program's about.
Yeah, I'd say it started maybe when I was around high school or uni, just, going to tree planting activities and just a lot of community work. And so in uni, I took a bunch of environmental law courses, and that's where now it really took root. And I always knew I didn't want to go into corporate practice law.
Okay.
And my family still hasn't gotten used to that. They're like, you went to school all those years to collect trash, which is what Sufficient Saturdays does. It's a youth-led movement, very grassroots, and we work around Nairobi. And currently, just last month, we actually had our first cleanup in Watamu, which was awesome. So we organize monthly cleanups. We hold town halls, which is discussions with the community members, and just to understand what are the challenges with waste management, how they can also participate in the process, and just also for them to understand their rights and whose responsibility it is to make sure that we have a clean and healthy environment as guaranteed by the Constitution of Kenya. So just kind of, tying the thread between environmental law on paper versus what it is in practice, and making sure that the community is just as engaged because they play a very big part of that. So we do that through cleanups, which is not the solution to the problem that we are facing, but just to start the conversation and to get us talking.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. And I guess, is this cleanup open to only the communities you're working with, or can anyone join?
Anyone can join. Yeah, we have our Instagram page, Sufficient Saturdays Initiative, and that's where we post a lot of our cleanups, and that's also because we have to fundraise especially for the safety equipment, because we get into really the dirtiest places of Nairobi. And so we mostly talk about our work on Instagram, and we invite anyone that could join us either in kind or in person. Yeah, even just a repost for us is considered support,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll include that obviously in our what do people say, link in bio, and
Yes.
so we'll be able to include it, so if people want to join, they can join that.
Absolutely.
I guess well, before we move on to your journey, we already know what's happening in Nairobi and in Kenya specifically with all the rains, and your initiative with Sufficient Saturdays. Have you seen cleaning up those specific areas actually made an impact, or what have your thoughts been around that?
Yeah, it does, because we mainly also target areas where there's water flowing, because we understand that there's a lot of blockages because of the dysfunctional waste management system that we have.
Yeah.
So we have seen that the areas that we have cleaned up, the water flows better. And so that means there would be less chances of flooding. And because we also work in areas near slum areas, like Mukuru and Jenga, which is just next to South B. So we have seen a bit of impact, but it's because we are still such a young movement and we don't necessarily have the numbers yet or the infrastructure now to continue the work. This has been an experience for us to see, okay, where can we also bring in the county government? And once we clear an area so that it doesn't become another dumping site, and when the water comes, and it's a whole mess. So we are trying to also see how we can, remove the dump sites and set up bins so that they can actually be removed after we have the waste can actually be removed and doesn't end up, blocking the drainage again.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
but it's been horrible. I was just in Mukuru yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm visiting some families that were displaced because of the floods, and yeah, I think because of that experience, they also see the need for them to participate more in activities because they see how it directly affects them.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's what like ACCN is about, is like exposing people to these cool initiatives that are out there that you're working on. And so I'm hoping like they are able to like maybe like join or some way like involve themselves in Sufficient Saturdays.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. And I guess moving like from like you being a climate activist, you also studied law in university, but then decided to go into environmental law and then transitioned into entrepreneurship. So talk me through this like whole thought process that you're going through and being like, hey, this is what I want to do, and how you navigate your career.
I let me just say, first of all, I didn't see myself being an entrepreneur. I always knew, yes, activist and maybe not a typical, corporate lawyer. And I was just looking for, a middle ground between those two things. And then I bumped into the TECA program. A friend of mine recommended me to it, and I got in, and it's been such I don't even know what word to use to describe it. Like, it's been such an adventure. It's been such a life-changing experience for me because I got into that program at a point where I was just looking for the right transition so that I don't end up in a practice that I do not like or feel trapped in a practice. But I also didn't know entrepreneurship would be the thing for me. But I was like, you know what? I'm here now. Why not try? And it's been great. I've managed to now channel, that passion I have into a more profitable model, because activists also need to eat.
That's true. That's true.
And I've also come to learn that the more you put, not to make it about money, obviously, but if you put that incentive there, it gives people more reason to participate in your programs. So like for us now with registry, we started off in the mangrove system because the program was focused on the blue economy. And after almost a year, we learned that, which was, I think, the hardest year for me so far, was, just understanding a space you're new in and trying to see how you can make money and still benefit the community and the planet. So there's this all different parts that you have to tie in together. And then after a year, we realized, okay, so maybe this is not the best use of our very limited resources and also time that we didn't have much of. And so I came back to my passion, which is in waste management. Okay. And now with the community that we work with in Watamu, in the Mida village, just right next to the Mida Creek, we have set up now a waste management, specifically a food composting system with the community group. And so we collect the food waste from around the village and we use vermiworms and we put the food waste there and then produce organic fertilizer. And that is still utilized by the same community. So we've kind of pivoted from the mangroves. We still participate in planting activities and a bit of monitoring here and there. But right now, our main business, which is also now directly tied to the thing that I really know how to do in waste management, is now, the composting. And we're also trying to venture more into the larger waste management space, like, teaching the community how to reduce plastic use and, also proper disposal, what their rights are and how to hold their immediate admin, which is like the ward admin, and the municipal government accountable for what they're supposed to offer in terms of waste management.
Okay. Well, I have so much to unpack from that like conversation. So maybe start by like you said you joined TECA.
Yeah.
I know what TECA is, obviously. Oh, yeah. Guys, if you don't know this, I and Fardosa have worked together.
You recruited me,
I recruited her for the TECA program. But I want to hear it from your experience about what TECA is. How can youth that are involved in entrepreneurship leverage a program like TECA and beyond to start this? And then what is registry? Like how did you found registry? What it is about? What are your goals?
Okay, so I'll start with TECA. So TECA is Triggering Exponential Climate Action. It's a venture builder program. So basically they bring together, climate enthusiasts, I would say that, people who are interested in the space and like have maybe identified problems and are looking for solutions. And at the point where I joined TECA, I was at the problem stage where, yes, I had identified some problems, but hadn't really come to creating a solution yet. So, and that was, I think, the advantage with TECA, because you didn't have to have a ready product or, an idea. You just needed to go through the process. And at the end, then that's how we founded Registry with my former co-founder, Samke, who's South African. And we worked together for about a year. And that's how we founded Registry, through, Teka's guidance and all the classes that we had and all the project support that we had. And like I said, Registry started off as a conservation, especially for mangroves, and trying to also understand the carbon credit space, which is something that we also try to do. So that was the beginning of our journey with Samke. Yeah. And so after, like I said, about a whole year of trying to understand the space and trying to create solutions, and I think at that point is also, I guess, also part of the founder journey, is where you see divergence in your interest and maybe in your passions and the plans that you have also for yourself as a person and for the company. And that's the point at which Samke and I kind of split, because she's also in South Africa. It was really hard to coordinate working together with someone. And it would have been really expensive for her to keep coming here. And we obviously didn't have enough funds for both of us to be in Watamu at the same time. And again, that's just part of the journey. Yeah. And afterwards we just, had a conversation and discussed it, and I'm like, okay, so maybe this is the end of the journey for us. And at that point is when I was like, okay, so what else can I do? And that's how I ended up pivoting back into the space that I was already in waste management. Okay. Yeah.
And I guess the cool thing about what Registry does is it's a lot of like community engagement, and through that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're working with communities, but also women in these communities specifically. And that's also creating some sort of like employment for them, whether it's formal or informal. Are you able to explain more about, through entrepreneurship, there is direct employment where you hire people, and I know you're expanding your team and everything, but then there's also indirect ripple effects of where you're helping support communities on ground with employment opportunities. I guess, how is that?
Just through our pilot now, we have about 3 members of the community, but we train 10, 5 women and 5 men to understand the composting system, so that when we do expand, we already have people we can uptake for the program. But for each site, we have about 3 people. And we also work, because we have a demo farm just right next to the composting, and it's run by now the women in the group. So they're our direct kind of customers. We haven't necessarily employed them, but we are kind of capacity building them in letting them understand what the benefits of the composting system are, and why they should consider using organic fertilizer over chemical fertilizers. And that in itself for us is a lot of value, because then they can start, and we're also teaching them how they can monitor their yields and link that if there's been any improvement, and they can also feed us that information. So for us, it's also capacity building them and combining that with a bit of technology. And it's not just like direct employment, like you said, but if you're able to increase their yields, that means we're also able to increase their livelihoods.
Exactly.
So that indirect impact is kind of what we're looking for, because we can't maybe employ 30 women, because we don't have the capacity for that, and we also don't need that much staff. But by impacting their livelihoods indirectly, that's like also something we consider.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's like those ripple effects that you were talking about. Yeah. And you mentioned that you were dealing with organic compost. I guess for those that don't know, and myself included, like, what are the benefits of like organic compost versus chemical compost? How is that better in terms of like plant yield?
So one of the main advantages with using organic compost and fertilizer over the chemical fertilizer is, of course, lack of toxins. There's no toxins in our fertilizer. And even if we do maybe enhance it, maybe there's something that's missing, that still falls in the line of organic fertilizer. So when they apply our fertilizer to the soil, that means there's no remainder of chemicals in the soil afterwards. So also with chemical fertilizer, that means once the good chemicals have been taken up by the plants, there's still something remaining in the soil. And usually the practice is, once you've done that, you have to give the soil time to kind of regenerate and recover. But with organic fertilizer, you don't really need to do that. You can just keep on applying and keep on planting all through the years, like through the seasons. So that's one of the main advantages.
Okay.
And of course, also one thing is we are dealing with food waste on the other hand.
Yeah.
So this is food that would have ended up in the landfill and end up like releasing methane, which is a greenhouse gas, into the atmosphere. But we are avoiding that by turning that food waste into compost.
I see. Oh, so you're using food compost to then create this compost.
Yeah, food waste that we collect from the village, maybe the vibandas around the village, some homes that we have already onboarded. So that's food that they would have either banned because they don't have access to waste management or like waste collection services, or they just throw them in the village, which now takes longer to rot, and also in that process, because it's a chemical process that goes on.
Yeah.
So we are avoiding all those emissions by putting it in a control system.
Okay, very interesting. And this is in Watamu and in Nairobi, or
no, this is currently just in Watamu, but
Okay.
I'm also considering actually starting one in Nairobi as well, because I mean the market is there. We have more access to food waste here because they're bigger markets, and bigger communities. But yeah, that was our pilot project, and so far we've harvested, say, around, because we started end of January, which is when we pivoted, and now 3 months we've already had like 3 harvests, and for each harvest we collect maybe anything between 60 to 100 kilograms of organic waste. I mean, of organic compost.
Organic compost.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I guess like this space of like compost and organic waste and like converting it into something useful, that is not something that you have a background of. Like obviously you have like grown up, like you have background of like what the climate issues are, obviously understand waste management because of your initiatives and like education to some extent.
Yeah.
But how did you go about navigating and like upskilling yourself around these topics?
edX.
Okay.
You know edX, the online? That's where I took my first solid waste management course. This was, I think, I was either still in uni or had just finished uni.
Okay.
Because I was attending like a lot of cleanups, and I just wanted to understand what the chain is like from, generation until disposal.
Yeah.
And I just took that course, and it was really amazing. Like, it completely shifted how I looked at waste, because I was already like going to cleanups, but you don't really have the full picture until you like really sit down and go as deep as you can.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been the free online courses, because professionally I really knew nothing about waste, just that I do want to see it everywhere, and just didn't feel right for it to be there. So when I took that step and taken that course, which I've taken a few more afterwards, but there's just so many resources that we could use, like it could be just a short 10-minute YouTube video. And also I follow closely the waste management in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, because my best friend lives there, and she just keeps telling me about it, and I got her to send me like some documents and how their systems work, and just trying to see how, as Kenya and also as registry my company, how we can customize some of those solutions for ourselves, because it's so organized.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's it. Like, right, like everyone is maybe interested, like those that are interested within the climate space, like always wonder like how can you take that first step, and it's true, just leverage the resources online to be able to like learn more about what you're passionate about, and then from there kick off, maybe start a company, maybe move into a job that's
be an activist.
Be an activist, like do something that you're passionate about. Okay.
Absolutely.
Very cool. And so I mean, your journey is very interesting to me. I think even when I was recruiting Fardosa for Taka, like you were like those memorable people. Like, when you...
That's so sweet.
No, it's true.
You don't have to say that because there's a camera.
I've said this before.
Yes, you have.
But no, I mean, it's always like you're very passionate about waste management. You're very passionate about what you do. And like, because of that, you're able to like take the step to like go into entrepreneurship, like explore, like whether it's like you're like fundraising, which is obviously something that's tough, but you still keep going despite all of the challenges that come towards you. And I think I really admire that about you. And speaking of that, like what advice would you give to youth that are in a similar position to you, or want to take similar journeys and maybe are scared? What advice would you give them to enter the climate space and to go about this?
I would say just start by volunteering, first of all, because even if you're in uni or in school, you don't necessarily have the expertise to engage as a professional. Yeah. But the moment you put yourself in these spaces as a volunteer, people are so open to volunteers because they see that like you're taking agency, you're like, taking that first step to understanding a space that maybe you do not have any experience in. Yeah. And it's free. People just like, even for us, for Safisha Saturdays, we get like lots of volunteers at our events. Okay. And most of them are uni students. They are studying all types of courses, not necessarily environmental related courses. Yeah. We have architects, we have engineers who just come because they understand there's also like an intersectionality of these things. You know, it's not necessarily just because you're an engineer that you only need to focus on that space. You need to find the linkages between what you do and what's also going on around the world, or like what's going on in your country or in your community. So I would say start by volunteering, especially with like NGOs, people that do a lot of humanitarian work. And then, of course, the next step after volunteering is upskilling yourself in like taking those free courses. If you have access to your phone or the internet, or if you're at home, these courses take like 8 hours, all of them.
Okay.
Like, because it's all an 8-hour course. So you can do them over a period of 2 weeks like I did.
Yeah.
And that just, kind of opens your mind. Do you know what is happening in the world, how you can implement those things at home? It even gives you a deeper understanding to the problems that we are facing and why we are facing those problems, or like what's lacking in our systems to do that. So I would say volunteering and upskilling, and then just start. I spent a lot of time just planning, making notes, and then sometimes like, oh my god, just do it, just go ahead and just organize something. And the moment you start, and I've realized like kind of the universe and people are watching. People will support you. There's someone somewhere that will always see what you're doing.
Yeah.
It doesn't go unnoticed. It may feel like that sometimes, but it doesn't go unnoticed. So just do it and put yourself out there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like if you're interested in a specific topic, just take the plunge, say that you want to do this and go ahead. And I'm glad that there are people out there like you that are doing this, and then thank you for speaking to the ACCN community to be able to like inspire them in a way to like, if there's something that they want to do, like go ahead and take advantage of your skill set, your passion, and just put it out there.
Yeah.
Like you'll fail once, you'll fail twice, but at some point,
or many times,
and
but
many
still,
times,
just keep moving.
Yeah,
and even when you fail, at least maybe this is not the right thing for me to do, and then you will move on to the next thing, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's very exciting. I'm very excited to see the new pivot of registry. Yeah, following your journey, obviously, for like the last year and a half. So very excited to see where you guys pivot to, all the impact that you make. I guess before we wrap up, is there any last words that you want to say to our ACCN community?
ACCN community, I would say support youth climate action. People are doing so much out there, but we need support, and support comes in many forms. It could come in form of, donations, just showing up, sending someone a text, just, doing this, inviting, young people to spaces like this and just helping them amplify their voices. Just really support people and support each other. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Fardosa, for joining our conversation. We'll link your resources below as well, so then people can access them, especially if they're interested in like waste management and climate.
Yes.
And from there, But thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time, and keep kicking ass in Kickstart in registry.
I will. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.